Memory is in the midst of an unprecedented moment, and it's led us to Korea to see this, the largest memory build-out in the world by SK Hynix, which makes the majority of the world's high-bandwidth memory chips for AI, inside their clean rooms where no media has ever set foot, until now.
In this place, HBM is assembled.
This secretive Korean memory king is also the hottest new entrant to the US market, following a blockbuster Nasdaq debut in July.
It was the biggest foreign listing on the Nasdaq ever, at $26 billion, and the appetite was insane.
Demand for these tiny stacks of memory to enable AI has created such scarcity that the world's most valuable companies like Nvidia and Apple are scrambling to sign long-term contracts, because what's long been considered a low-margin commodity is now sending consumer electronics prices soaring.
It's like a war. Everybody wants that for the memory chip. Without that, they cannot produce their AI computing and AI chips.
SK Hynix's answer, build like never before. $720 billion to triple capacity by 2034. But memory is a classic boom and bust industry. So what happens to all this investment and investor faith if it all goes bust?
We cannot avoid a cycle. It's coming, especially against China.
We flew to South Korea to visit 4 SK Hynix sites and see its massive operation there.
We decided to accelerate our timeline.
This is a never-before-seen look inside the highly secured company, from the largest factory being built in Korea to gowning up for an inside view of a clean room where memory is made, to SK Hynix's first ever US facility coming in Indiana. Plus, a rare chance to sit down with the company's top executive and technology leads to ask about the huge risks they're taking in hopes that AI has changed the memory business for good. Started as Sunkyung Textile Company as the Korean War was ending by the uncle of now Chairman Tae-won, SK Group diversified from polyester to petroleum to telecommunications. It narrowly escaped the Asian financial crisis of 1997 as Chairman Che took over and set his sights on chips.
I made it a very risky bet at the time.
In 2012, SK Group spent $3 billion for Hynix Semiconductor, a product of Hyundai's and LG's chip divisions, creating SK Hynix. The next year, it unveiled the world's first high-bandwidth memory. Myung-jae Park joined in 2014 and now leads HBM design.
SK Hynix is the pioneer that created the first HBM. At that moment, there was no application or devices that needed that, but we had strong conviction.
By 2015, SK Hynix sold the world's first commercial HBM on AMD's Radeon graphics cards. When Bitcoin miners started snatching up so many gaming GPUs around 2017, SK Hynix finally started seeing returns on its bet. So did the company's top rival, Samsung, also based in Korea. Samsung started HBM production later in 2015 and became Nvidia's original supplier the next year. But as the AI era kicked off with ChatGPT in 2022, SK Hynix was first to make HBM3, and Nvidia made the switch. SK Hynix remains Nvidia's primary HBM supplier today. We're here at SK Group's headquarters in Seoul. It's actually made up of more than 100 subsidiaries, and Chairman Tae-won told me that SK Hynix is now its biggest asset. Now, SK Hynix is the market share leader in HBM, and it briefly dethroned Samsung in June as South Korea's most valuable company, although it's now back in the number 2 spot. American investors scrambled to get shares, popping the stock 13% on its first day of US trading.
The listing in the US stock market is our dream come true.
If it doesn't crash hard because the sustained demand about 10 years into the future exists, these memory companies are going to be some of the cheapest valuations today, and they're going to have some of the biggest opportunities to rake in profits for the next decade.
High bonuses and stock options have sent SK Hynix employees to the top of Korea's highly competitive marriage market.
That's a pickup line in the bar. Hey, yeah, I work at SK Hynix. It's created generational wealth, but of course you can also lose it if it goes the wrong way.
Indeed, those gains have largely disappeared amid chaos in chip stocks and the Korean market as a whole, a situation that now impacts US investors too.
It's one of the most volatile markets out there. The index swings like a single stock, AI stock in the US.
It's in this volatile moment that the company is undergoing its biggest build-out in history.
Roughly equivalent to 600 soccer fields. We plan to build 4 fabs including the first fab featuring 6 clean rooms.
We're standing in the middle of what's going to be the largest memory fab in the world. It's called the Yongin Cluster, 45 million square feet. Construction began in 2023, and the first of these 4 fabs is scheduled to open here in February. The whole complex will cost around $400 billion. What's different about this fab from others I've seen is that it's stacked up instead of sprawling out, because the mountains all around us had to be flattened to make room for the big plans in the limited space available. South Korea is small, and some 70% of it is covered in mountains, leaving little room left to build.
This huge area was a mountain.
The Korean government has a chip support package now worth up to $22 billion that's been helping SK Hynix with infrastructure needs at Yongin, like flattening those mountains. It's part of a larger plan unveiled by the South Korean government in June to double the country's memory production in 5 years. It includes multiple new megafabs from Samsung, some of which we saw being built at its Pyeongtaek campus, and a future SK Hynix cluster planned in the southwest of the country.
We hear that all the hotels nearby the Pyeongtaek and this SK is fully booked. If you name any company in the big tech, they are all in Korea to sign a contract. Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Nvidia, or AMD, everybody's coming.
Now, the Korean president is urging speed. It's urgent because big tech companies are aggressively courting SK Hynix and rivals in a rush to secure supply. AMD's Lisa Su and Nvidia's Jensen Huang both held memory meetings in Korea in recent months.
We drink the beers and the Korean soju together.
Huang signed this SK Hynix wafer with a clear message: please make more.
That's the Jensen's, yes.
Is he one of your friends? And who are some of your other friends in the AI world?
Microsoft Satyas and Google Sundar and Mark and Meta, and they are my friend, and I occasionally meet them.
Memory is why Amazon just upped its 2026 capex estimate from $200 billion to $220 billion. And at Apple, the memory crunch contributed to weak guidance and rising iPad and MacBook prices.
The price of the chip is too high, and even Apple, then they have to raise the price, and that actually increased all the prices to the society. So that's not really good. So I don't want that.
Prices and scarcity are so bad that it's fueled the success of new chip entrants like D-Matrix, Grok, and Cerebras that take a totally different approach that reduces reliance on the DRAM that's in shortest supply. Cerebras had a blockbuster IPO in May, while Grok was acquired by Nvidia in December. Now, Nvidia is reportedly testing out lower memory versions of its next GPU too. If these approaches work, it could reduce the appetite for HBM. Memory demand has not historically held up long, but SK Hynix says this time is different. To meet customer pressure that's at an all-time high, construction here was sped way up.
We are targeting completion of the 4th fab by 2033, 12 years ahead our original schedule.
To understand why there's such a rush, let's talk about what SK Hynix makes and how it happens. High bandwidth memory, HBM, is the type of memory where SK Hynix dominates, selling the majority of the world's supply. HBM is made from stacks of DRAM, short-term memory chips enabling rapid data access so processors can execute tasks. Then it's embedded on GPUs and AI accelerators, hence the shortage.
Even though you have the fastest processor, it means nothing if data can be processed on time. We call this situation memory war.
To get HBM to higher performance and bandwidth, up to 16 DRAM chips are stacked and connected in increasingly complex ways, known as packaging. SK Hynix is also building for this step. There's yet another expansion happening here in Cheongju, 2 hours south of Seoul. The site's biggest fab, $13 billion M15X, is as tall as a 33-floor apartment building, and it opened in 2025. We got an unprecedented chance to go inside the clean room of this secretive SK Hynix fab for an exclusive up-close look at how HBM is made, with Woojin Choi, the head of packaging and test. So what is this that we're walking into?
This is air shower. We need to remove all the dust out from the outside. The space is equivalent for the 13 football fields. We produce the HBM 3E and 4.
And 4, so your most recent product.
Right.
This is HBM4. It takes 4 months to make more than 1,000 process steps, one of which is happening right behind me. This is MR-MUF. It's a packaging technology that SK Hynix developed and only SK Hynix does. SK Hynix came up with MR-MUF around 2019 when it lost HBM leadership to Samsung and needed an edge. It's a low-pressure, quick method of stacking DRAM chips, bonding all layers simultaneously instead of traditional methods that bond and press them individually. Injecting a protective liquid between them reduces heat and warpage issues, resulting in what SK Hynix says is 40% thinner stacks.
We are stacking the die on the base wafer.
Those stacks of HBM have historically generated several times more revenue per wafer than conventional DRAM. Still, when it comes to that simpler DRAM, Samsung is the market share leader. It also leads in NAND flash, long-term memory used in hard drives because it stores data even when devices are turned off. Now, SK Hynix is spending $67 billion more to build 2 more huge new fabs here, one for NAND flash and one for packaging, before they head off to TSMC to be added to logic chips like GPUs and CPUs. That packaging step at TSMC has become a bottleneck, with Nvidia reserving the majority of TSMC's most advanced CoWoS capacity. So, with this new fab, SK Hynix hopes to keep the memory packaging lines moving. Some say Samsung's technology is catching SK Hynix in HBM. But SK Hynix remains the HBM king.
Samsung has been suffering greatly for the last few years, but this year in HBM4 for Rubin, Samsung seems to be ahead of SK Hynix. But what is clear is that SK is definitely better in cost of manufacturing, so its operating margin is the best.
This is what we call the HBM4E enhanced. So it actually contained 380 billion transistors in it.
And what's next after this?
Well, next is HBM5. It's much more like there's a customer-oriented. So Nvidia wants that their own custom chips, and Google wants to customize it to HBM.
Custom HBM is co-designed with the AI processors it's paired with, a trend accelerating with next-gen HBM5.
In the past, people just perceive that this memory chip is just commodity. Well, they don't really care which one, the Samsung brand or the SK brand and the Micron brand. But now it's a custom product, and well, we have to actually design for the specific customer and the specific performance.
Custom HBM is one way SK Hynix hopes to break free from the classic boom and bust cycle that's always made memory a risky business. While specifics on customers are kept under wraps, one big change is clear. Memory contracts used to be no longer than 1 year. Now customers are signing up to 5-year contracts. SK Hynix reported in July that it signed 10 long-term agreements with major customers.
5-year contract is a really long term, and it has a certain commitment in capital as well. And the prepayment is not $10,000, it's $10 billion. So everyone is taking risk for this memory supply to make it happen.
Nvidia is one of SK Hynix's biggest HBM customers, and Nvidia just secured a stable supply of HBM and agreed to co-develop next-gen memory as part of a $500 billion deal with SK Group that includes building new data centers with SK Telecom by 2027. While the cost structure of deals like this are murky, one thing we know is prices have surged. Unlike big proprietary systems like Nvidia's Vera Rubin and AMD's Helios, memory is still a relatively low-margin commodity, sold at a fairly standard rate determined by the market. That's shifting with HBM, a premium product that commands higher prices and bespoke deals. HBM is gobbling up so much DRAM that it's spiking the cost of standard memory. Smartphone DRAM prices are up more than 80% since last quarter.
The prices went up too fast. I'm really sorry about this. But, well, if everybody wants that all the chips, then I cannot just provide automatically. So but I'm trying to my best.
Demand like this is why SK Hynix is spending so much to make more. One reason it's so expensive, the machines needed to make it happen. One of these overhead hoist transports can cost up to $70,000. How many of those do you guys have?
Actually, we have 700 of them in this facility.
Here at SK Hynix headquarters in Icheon, an hour southeast of Seoul, this is its biggest production facility. SK Hynix says this is the longest cleanroom track in the world, transporting these automated vehicles with 25 wafers each between fabs on this campus. One remarkable machine behind this glass is an extreme ultraviolet lithography machine by ASML, the only company in the world that makes this crucial machine for etching the tiniest circuitry on chips. And this is where SK Hynix has what it says is the memory industry's first of ASML's most advanced $400 million high-NA machines. Overall, SK Hynix is spending up to $8 billion on EV machines coming by 2027. At 43% of sales, South Korea is ASML's largest market. To put the total $720 billion spend for all these fabs in context, it's more than 18 times the $39 billion the US government set aside for all companies trying to build chip fabs here through the manufacturing incentive portion of the CHIPS Act. It's a monumental number and a huge risk if demand doesn't last. In something that's traditionally been a boom and bust cycle, why is this time? Is it going to stay?
AI era, I think, is different. All that agent has needed more memories. So I don't want to say that there is no cycle, but it's a much longer cycle.
The number of computers you will use for the AI applications is limitless. So we see this as a structural change. We are enjoying the boom right now, but we are not expecting the bust cycle in the near future.
At least till 2030, many analysts have the demand outstripping supply. But the moment that more of these fabs come on board, and then you've got the supply coming from the likes of Micron as well as Samsung, then you're going to have a situation where potentially you could have a glut on the market again.
It wouldn't be the first time the company faced immense uncertainty. The Asian financial crisis of the late 90s nearly sent its parent company into bankruptcy. And the latest cycle downturn in 2023 saw a memory oversupply that left SK Hynix with an operating loss of nearly $6 billion. This time, what's going to be different?
One thing different is that, we have to deal with AI. AI consumes a lot of resources, a lot of energies, the powers and the materials, the silicons, even waters. There is some danger. I know that, but we have to carefully watch out for that. In general purpose of the AI could actually help that relieve from the human side is labor. There's more chance we can make that a happy society.
In Korean culture, especially for SK Hynix, we call in Korean dokam. It is we never give up for anything.
But in the US, securing immense resources and local support to build AI infrastructure is getting harder.
If I make one fab in Korea, it's a half cost relative to US. US is expensive land, electricity, waters, and the regulations as well.
Does the US have enough resources to support an HBM4 production facility?
Every country wants to build the memory fab in their territory. If there is water, powers, and land, and also the problem is that the ecosystem. So if I can bring that ecosystem together, I'm going to build them then anywhere.
Indeed, SK Hynix is now building its first U.S. facility in West Lafayette, Indiana, for advanced packaging, not front-end production of HBM. We were given an exclusive first look inside the site.
This Indiana fab will be SK Hynix's first manufacturing facility in the U.S. About $4 billion in the investment.
Packaging fab is relatively small, much cheaper, but I believe what US need is a front-end manufacturing.
Announced in 2024, it's now emerging fast since groundbreaking in April. The 133-acre site will have a fab, R&D centers, and create around 1,000 long-term jobs there. SK Hynix will bring employees over from Korea temporarily to get it started at first. Choi went to Indiana 4 times last year.
Why Indiana? Indiana has enough power and water. Second one is government support. Indiana state willing to support us. And third one is manpower. Our site is very close to Purdue University and also the UIUC.
That incentive package totals over $1 billion, $458 million of federal CHIPS Act funds, and a conditional package from Indiana worth more than $700 million, the second largest in state history. Still, it's not front-end manufacturing. SK Hynix will still make its memory chips in Korea and at 3 fabs in China. But under U.S. export controls, SK Hynix and others can't sell their most advanced HBM in China. So China has its own line of emerging makers of the coveted memory needed for AI.
They are clearly catching up very quickly. It's a race. And now the counterparty of the race is China. And that's going to be a lot dangerous than anything else in the world.
But in the US, SK Hynix's biggest market, the other two leaders in the HBM race have a much larger presence. Samsung has a giant new Texas fab, although it's for logic chips, not memory. And US-based Micron is spending $250 billion on huge memory manufacturing fabs in Idaho and upstate New York.
This is critical capability, which also brings with it, for Micron alone, 100,000 American jobs.
At an event for first concrete pour at Micron's New York fab, the U.S. Commerce Secretary called on SK Hynix and Samsung to construct memory manufacturing fabs here too, which begs one major question. What are your plans?
I'm willing to do it, but the problem is that I really hard to find the right place.
In July, SK Hynix denied a Korean media report that it's acquiring Intel's massive fab project under construction in Ohio. But Intel and SK Hynix do have a long relationship. SK Hynix bought Intel's NAND and SSD business for $9 billion in 2021, creating the subsidiary Solidigm and propelling SK Hynix to the world's #2 spot in NAND. In January, SK Hynix restructured Solidigm to launch a $10 billion AI company in the US. What is that company?
US has the really good software engineers and you had a really good software industry. But hardware-wise, maybe the Koreans and Taiwan, Japan has that a little better. So we can actually add up together, and I hope that we can make it. And that's why we set up that company.
For now, SK Hynix plans to package chips in the first cleanroom in Indiana by 2028, and to be making memory in the first Yongin cluster cleanroom in Korea by February.
Probably next year is the worst year for the memory shortage. My job is that I want to defend the memory market, and I'm trying to actually expand that as much as I can, as fast as I can.